I've long been a fan of Kevin D. Williamson, KDW, even and especially when he and I disagreed. However, Trump came along, and KDW allowed a bit of his brain to go utterly mad. But that's okay, it really is. The human Rorschach test that is Trump did that to a lot of people, so I didn't mind that. The other thing, though, that seems so frequently to accompany Trump Derangement Syndrome is utter contempt for those who don't share the Trump haters' contempt for Trump. That I found to be inexplicably dumb, and therefore unbecoming the brilliant among us, like KDW.
This is Dr. Avenir. Kevin D. Williamson is a pundit and writer for a group called The Dispatch. They're a vaguely conservative media organization. They, I believe, include people like Jonah Goldberg. David French used to work for them before I think he went to the New York Times. But Kevin D. Williamson joined them, and Kevin D. Williamson was one of whom I've always been, or I had long been, a fan up until only recently. Williamson is a writer and pundit in the mold of Christopher Hitchens, the now deceased Christopher Hitchens. He skewers his opponents with a style and elegance and sophistication that is withering if you're on the receiving end of it. And I'm okay with that, but it tends to give the person doing this skewering an air of arrogance and know-it-all-ishness that can be very off-putting from time to time. It's that arrogance and off-puttingness that is the target of this particular piece. I've long been a fan of Kevin D. Williamson's, I'll call him KDW, even and especially when he and I disagreed. However, Trump came along now back in 2016, or 2015 really, and KDW allowed a bit of his brain to go utterly mad. But that's okay. It really is. The Rorschach Test that is Trump did that to a lot of people. So I didn't mind that. The other thing, though, that seems so frequently to accompany Trump Derangement Syndrome is utter contempt for those who don't share the Trump haters' contempt for Trump. That I found to be inexplicably dumb, and therefore unbecoming the brilliant among us, like KDW. Both Ben Shapiro and Jonah Goldberg managed to avoid that trap, and each admitted that he could see how people could support Trump. They didn't agree, but at least could understand how others could disagree. This is an important characteristic for our side. The left has managed to avoid the ability to see others' point of view entirely, and we need never to stoop to that level intellectually. Moreover, being able to see the point of view of others, including leftists, is an important component of what I've called political maturity. This is, I believe, the ability to think in an advanced way about current events and politics. That is, rationally and with as little emotion as possible. I've identified, I'm going to say, 8 levels of maturity in political discourse, ranging from the most basic and the most primitive to the most elevated and the least emotional and the most rational. So 1 through 8. I've long observed that the left keeps their thinking and their discourse about that thinking resolutely on level 1, the very most basic, while we on the right tend to move fairly quickly to level 4. Hence, we're frequently talking over the left's heads, so they just shut down the discussion. Logically, they see no need to continue a discussion in which they're going to get shellacked. KDW rarely gets below level 6 in his essays, except when he peppers his Trump-focused essays with level 1 contempt for those who are not fully Trump-phobic. Dislike Trump all you want, but don't make of him something he is not. He was, or is, nothing more nor less than just the most prominent spokesman, the avatar, if you will, for a certain set of ideas and notions of governance. That's it. That's all he is and all he's ever been. Despite the media's massive and massively successful campaign to fabricate from Trump a mystical magical boogeyman with Rasputin-esque powers of mind control. Moreover, the set of ideas Trump espouses are generally a bunch of yawners, a mishmash of moderate, vaguely isolationist, kind of chauvinistic pablum, redolent of 1920s republicanism, with a dash of 50s, 60s big project GOP stuff, and a sprinkling of Reagan-style tax cutting and Putin blocking, with some genuinely new, for good or ill, totally Trump stuff, things like the Jerusalem embassy, the Abraham Accords, opening to North Korea. Yes, Trump has the large, outsized personality, but that was, or is, all just a smokescreen. Trump now has a track record, and it's not a horrible one. Not a great one, but not terrible. If I could, I'd get rid of the protectionism from his presidency, the tweets, the COVID response, rights, and other things. But I'd keep the Supreme Court justices, the deregulation, the Jerusalem embassy, the Abraham Accords, and a bunch more. Basically, the dude was Romney plus, with a bad personality. And I'm with everyone on this one. I want no part of a moderate Republican either. But give me one of those over a leftist halfwit like Obama or Biden any day. So the serious, irrational, hysterical vitriol on the part of KDW and others has only one possible explanation. Those in thrall to it have to be swallowing the dominant media's and the Democrats' fully fabricated horse manure. That is beneath the rational, analytical, unsentimental, intellectual types, like KDW. As is the contempt toward those who disagree. It takes a big man, a humble man, to admit that he's not the holder of all that is true and good and right, and KDW has difficulty with that admission. Oh, he knows it all right. The man is a right genius, but he has difficulty allowing people to get to his intellectual place in their own time, deeming that delay a sign of character and intellect deficiency. This is kind of a disturbing thing on the right in general. Many have been labeled idiots, morons, freaks, psychos, and more, merely for being slightly different ideologically. For instance, KDW dishes out nothing but derision on the topic of people like Sean Hannity, Candace Owens, Dinesh D'Souza, Charlie Kirk, and others. But all of these people for whom KDW has such open contempt would happily live in a world ordered around the principles that KDW himself espouses. In other words, Kevin D. Williamson has towering contempt for people who are very much like him in their thinking. However, and it's a big one, I've always been such a fan of KDW's that I'm tempted to subscribe to the Dispatch to see what this move does to his output. And I don't care that he's not perfect.